so I did my presentation about the diet for athletes and why it supports athletes. So first we're just kind of define like what vegan is compared to other diets. So vegan includes not eating any animal foods, and that's like no animal food origin. There's also vegetarian. This contains not consuming animal flesh, but eating things like eggs or dairy. Then we have flexitarian. This is someone who may regularly follow a vegan diet, but occasionally eat red meat or white meat, or even dairy or fish. And finally, we have nutritionarian. Consumes unrefined plant foods, high in micronutrients, but may or may not be a vegan. So there's a lot of different reasons that people switch to a vegan diet compared to an omnivorous diet. One of the main ones is the concerns over processed meats available in America. This is not just at restaurants, but it can be even at the grocery store. A lot of times people may or may not know how processed the meat that they're buying is. Other reasons are for moral values and animal welfare. I'm sure you guys have heard of how large companies have animals like cows and chickens in confinement, and that kind of treatment of animals is a huge driver for why people switch to a vegan diet. Aside from the welfare, the fact that vegan diets are environmentally friendly, so it takes a lot of industry and infrastructure to not only raise a cattle, but then kill it and process it. So since vegan diets are primarily plant-based, it's a little bit more organic and natural, so it's easier to get those foods without ruining the environment versus the other way around. Other than that, people may just have a personal preference to eat plant food. They may not like the taste of red meat or any meat for that matter. And then finally, a lot of people go vegan because they might want to lose weight. You'll be avoiding some of the fats from eating red meats or white meats for just eating plants. So there's a variety of health benefits for vegan diets. A lot of them have to do with heart health. So what I wrote here, we got reduced inflammation in the body's essential tissues. This is kind of all across the board. One of the main things is it makes your blood less viscous, so it makes your blood more easily be able to flow throughout the body. Whereas when you're eating red meat in every meal, or let's say 2 or 3 times a day, your blood is a lot thicker and it gets clogged up in your arteries. Another one is improving the endothelial function in the heart and blood vessels. So that's like the lining of your heart and your blood vessels. And eating vegan diets is beneficial towards just normal processing of an endothelial in your blood vessels and your heart. Another one we have here is decreased atherosclerosis and less plaque buildup in your vessels. So a lot of times eating heavy amounts of red meats or other meats will build up plaque in your arteries, and this is what allows the arteries to become clogged. And then finally, for more of a performance type of thing, there's increased muscle blood flow. So since the blood is less viscous, it's able to flow to your muscles quicker. So looking at vegan diet performance, there's a large advantage in vegan diets, especially with recovery after workouts. So this includes decreased inflammation due to the plant foods being antioxidant in nature. Also, studies have shown that there's a vegan diet is greater for a longer endurance athlete, and the reason for this is plant foods and whole grain foods are shown to increase your glycogen stores, so it allows you to continue to go as hard as you can in whatever endurance competition you're in, knowing that your body is going to be able to store glucose better than omnivorous diet. Some more on performance. I read a lot about the power of eating beets before workouts. I read that is almost more beneficial than eating any other carb before a workout as far as giving you enough energy to go through your workout at the highest intensity that you would want it to be at. A lot of the reason why beets are very effective is because they're high in a particle called nitric oxide. Nitric oxide is a powerful vasodilator in the body, so vasodilators dilate your blood vessels, allowing it to open up more, and that's how you see the increased muscle blood flow. And this could be great for an endurance event because you want to have more increased muscle blood flow for as long as you can, especially in endurance events. So vegan diets, again, really good for injury recovery and a quicker injury recovery versus a non-vegan diet. So it promotes, not only does it prevent your vessels from deteriorating, but it actually promotes blood vessel growth. Better stimulates the immune system against infections, and basically everything I've read and seen as far as videos with vegan athletes, they have stated how they were consistently able to perform at a high level multiple days in a row, compared to other people who were non-vegans explaining that they needed to take more rest days and recovery days. Another big thing here is that vegan diets decrease disease risk. This again has a lot to do with heart diseases. Heart diseases are the #1 killer in the United States. So if you do eat a vegan diet, you will be able to reverse these heart conditions like coronary artery disease, hypertension, type 2 diabetes, myocardial infarction, which is another term for a heart attack, and then strokes as well. So that again has a lot to do with the fact that your blood vessels are functioning more healthy and your endothelial, so your heart as a whole is functioning healthier with a vegan diet. So I tried to figure out if I could find the answer to whether or not vegan athletes are stronger than meat-eating athletes, and after doing extensive research, I found that this answer really is no, it's not the case. Multiple studies I saw have shown that athletes of similar capacity and similar endurance and strength have similar exercise capacity, whether they're eating a vegan diet or an omnivorous diet. But another thing that kind of is more of a myth, but you may see with vegan athletes, is that vegan athletes are often leaner than omnivores, but the myth is that just because they're leaner, that doesn't mean that they are necessarily weaker. And I just wrote here how strength gains come from your training, so you really, your training is going to be where you're going to see your best strength gains. You can, increase your strength gain on a vegan diet just as well as you can on an omnivorous diet. So next we have some common myths that people may say or you may hear about the vegan diet. So the first one is vegans may not be able to get enough protein, especially athletes, and this is definitely not true. There is plenty of vegan foods out there that give you plenty of protein, just as much as an omnivorous diet would, and some of the example of those includes lentils, chickpeas, nuts and seeds, quinoa. I'll give you adequate protein. The second myth is that vegan diets guarantee weight loss. So this is obviously false, and the reason being is you're going to need exercise for that weight loss. If you just strictly eat a vegan diet but you work out just about never, you're not going to see any changes in your weight loss if that is one of your goals. So continue here on some myths. The third myth I found was you can't get enough vitamin B12 from a vegan diet. And although vitamin B12 isn't really found in a lot of plant foods, a lot of fruits or vegetables. It is still found in things like almond milk and nutritional yeast. So it's definitely a myth because there are vegans out there who take supplements of B12, but if you do like the taste of almond milk or you decide to use nutritional yeast, you can get vitamin B12 from those two sources as well. And finally, my last myth here is that dairy is essential for strong bones. This is actually something I remember growing up learning myself, and having done this research, it was kind of really eye-opening to me to find out that this isn't necessarily the truth at all. Really, what it comes down to is it's calcium that is needed for your bone health, not necessarily dairy. Obviously, calcium is found in dairy products, but it's also found in other vegan products such as beans, spinach, and chia seeds. So that is all I have for you guys. If you guys have any questions, let me know. And thank you.
So, big question that I found, a lot of it in the research focuses on endurance athletes. How do you feel about vegan diets for more strength and power-based athletes?
I think it honestly is a viable option. It all, it accounts to whether or not you're eating enough calories in a day. Obviously, a strength athlete may need more amounts of protein and carbohydrates than someone who is an endurance athlete. I mean, it could be pretty similar, but different for different reasons, obviously. But I mean, I've seen in my research, like professional athletes who are football players, a lot of the Tennessee Titans football players have changed to vegan diet, and as you can imagine, a Tennessee Titan lineman, I'm sure is doing as much strength training as more than anyone else here probably, and they eat a vegan diet, and as long as you're getting enough calories and enough of your micronutrients of protein, carbohydrate, and fat, you should be fine.
All right. Are you seeing the same heart health problems with an athlete who eats normal food versus someone who doesn't really care what they're eating?
Yeah, so I definitely did see that. I will say what I found originally is what I thought for myself before I did this research was that red meat was what causes bad heart health. But having done this research, I found that dairy products and chicken almost have the same amount of effect on your heart health. Really, the main thing that they found was that really humans were never really created to eat animals. I mean, we're not real. Our physiology in our body doesn't really support animal eating. So when you do switch to a vegan diet, like your health, as far as your heart health, will definitely see increases. You're going to see decreased, hypertension or decreased blood pressure. You're going to see better levels of LDL, HDL rather, good cholesterol, and lower levels of the LDL bad cholesterol. So just kind of overall, eating a vegan diet really is going to be better for your heart health compared to a non-course diet.
And then another one. So you mentioned a lot of endurance stuff. They're seeing better performance. Do you think that's just because their diets naturally have more carbs than a normal diet?
I don't think it necessarily has to do with having more or less carbs. You can eat a lot of carbs and be a vegan, or you can eat a lot of carbs and be an omnivore. So really, for an endurance athlete, it's just trying to find that perfect balance of protein and carbohydrates that you're ingesting before or after exercises. And back what I was saying on the slide, let's see where I talked about beets. That's an example of a food that you could eat that might be different than eating pasta before a workout. I remember when I was in high school and growing up, I heard a lot about eat pasta, it makes you swim faster or run faster. And what I really found from doing my research that eating beets before workout is actually even better than that. But yeah, that answers your question.
All right, so I have a question first, and then I have some comments.
Okay.
So that's probably the worst part of this. The question: do you think that vegans, in your opinion, are are better informed than your average person as far as diet is concerned?
I don't necessarily think.
Let me back that
that's
up just a
true.
second there, I'm sorry, because most of society sucks, right? Honestly, I mean, because we're 66%.
No, I agree with you. Most of this of society.
That's the
is
premise that I'm
uninformed.
asking from. So most of us suck at the knowledge of nutrition. Vegans, so I'm talking about that small percentage only. Can you speak to that?
I will say I don't necessarily think like you can be a vegan. You can become a vegan not knowing the health benefits of becoming a vegan, but I will say that I think vegans are a little bit more conscious about what they're putting into their bodies compared to someone who isn't. Just an example of my own life, I guess I would say is, sometimes when I'm like running out of groceries, I'll think about going out to eat. And a lot of times when you go out to eat, you don't necessarily know exactly what nutrients you're getting. And you may know that you're getting carbs and protein because you're getting rice and chicken, but you don't know how processed or unprocessed that food is compared to a vegan who is buying like whole produce like every time they're going to the grocery store. They know that that food is not going to be processed. They know that that's going to support their not only their endurance but their overall health. So I would say I think vegans are a little bit more informed, but I think it's only because they are they're more in tune to kind of focus on exactly what they're putting in their body. They're not just going to Chick-fil-A and eating it and not thinking about it.
You mentioned a lot that, it's all about calories, it's all about macros for a few things. So if you had a vegan athlete and a normal athlete and they're eating the same calories, the same macros, are there going to be performance difference? Is there going to be a difference in injury prevention and recovery?
I will say based on that question, I will say I think vegan diets is better for that, but I also, it's a tough question because from the studies I saw, there wasn't a direct answer to that. They didn't say that vegans are stronger than, an omnivore when they're eating exactly the same diet. As far as recovery goes, I mean, again, I think the inflammation is better served with a vegan diet, but I don't think that if you're getting the exact same macronutrients from a vegan diet versus an omnivore, that you're going to be stronger from omnivore versus vegan. You can still be just as strong.
So you're not seeing any performance differences, you don't think? Is that what you're just saying?
I don't think that there was a direct performance. It was definitely very skewed data when I was researching it, so it wasn't directly saying that a vegan diet is better for performance. It just kind of more was towards recovery versus performance.
Good answer.
So I have two specific questions for you. One that you had talked about early on was around viscosity of the blood. And so let me ask you, what did you find around iron and the deficiencies of iron in vegans? And would you recommend that someone who is vegan have more blood work done more often?
I don't think that someone who's a vegan necessarily needs more blood work, and I did see that iron is a common deficiency in vegan diets. I don't know the exact foods that I'm trying to think of foods that have good iron for vegans, and they're not all coming up to me right now.
Yeah.
But I know they exist. There's definitely foods out there that have iron that is healthy for you. You're not going to be deficient in iron when you're a vegan, but I will say one thing I did found is that there's a certain type of iron called heme iron that comes from most red meats.
Yep.
And that iron, I did find that a lot of professionals, and I watched a lot of YouTube videos doing my research, and a lot of professionals were saying how the heme iron is what causes a lot of the inflammation in the body. And so basically I would say, if you're a vegan, or just anyone really in general, try to go towards a different type of iron other than heme iron. Because, from the studies I saw, it showed that heme iron is what's causing inflammation in the body. So if there's some certain type of iron that doesn't have that heme iron in it, I think that would be a better option.
Okay.
Whether that means you're a vegan or if you're not.
My second, and I know we're short on time. My second question for you: you talked about the immune system and vegan and the immune system. the immune system, the endocrine system is based largely on fat and fat intake. Do you feel like the vegan gets enough fat intake, and where would they get it primarily from?
I would say yes, and I think the best fat intake for a vegan would be an avocado.
Okay.
Avocados are good and they're high in monounsaturated, polyunsaturated fats, and they're low in bad fats, saturated and trans fat. And they're also vegan, so I think that food specifically is the best one for fats. I think there's other foods, but like the one that comes to my mind first is avocados.